When I knew about Mr. Kejriwal, I was studying modern Indian studies. So he was like a huge influence in terms of, thought, oratory skills, and outlook of the nation. I think he was the ruler of Delhi for some time, but he heads a different party. It is called the Aam Aadmi Party, which coolly becomes up, which means you in a respective form in Hindi. Aam Aadmi Party up. So when he would campaign, he's like, we are with you because we are you. And then now it's like, no, you're not us. And he has been, I don't even know what's the verb for it. You guys can just look at what people are saying because I'm not there. I'm not going to put words into other people's mouths, but I will be reading to you guys History of the Sikhs by Mr. Khushwant Singh, who is a Sikh author himself of the modern 20th century. This work is the first attempt to tell the story of the Sikhs from their inception to the present day. It is based on the study of original documents in Gurmukhi, Persian, and English, available in the archives and libraries of India, Pakistan, and the UK, and the US, and Canada. It also gives an account of the Sikh community scattered in different parts of the world. The story of the Sikhs is the story of the rise, fulfillment, and collapse of Punjabi nationalism. So not everyone who lives in Punjab is Sikh, but Sikh people, even though being just 2% of the whole Indian population, has influenced Punjab, which is one of the most strategic provinces if you look at the map in India. So I don't know how people are sleeping on this province. We need to discuss more about it, especially, the gang warfares. Okay, I did a series on Jammu, and to my weakness in this series, I did not discuss as much about Punjab. And then in this book, he actually, Mr. Singh, Khushwant Singh, goes into like how Jammu was affected by the people of Punjab. So Jammu was not like an isolated area that had full autonomy, right? Like they would interact with forces, with peasants of Punjab. Okay. It begins in the latter part of the 15th century with Guru Nanak initiating a religious movement emphasizing what was common between Hinduism and Islam and preaching the unity of these two faiths practiced in Punjab. By the beginning of the 17th century, the movement crystallized in the formation of a third religious community consisting of the disciples or Sikhs of Nanak and the succeeding teachers or gurus. Its mysticism found expression in the analogy of their sacred writings, the Adi Granth, comprised of the writings of the Sikh gurus as well as of Hindu and Muslim saints. The next 100 years saw the growth of a political movement alongside the religious, culminating in the call to arms by the last guru, Gobind. So if you guys know about recent Indian history, like there was this cult leader who exploited young women, and he was brought down by the Sikhs because he was trying to compare himself to Gobind Singh, and that led to his demise. So that was one super positive contribution of Sikhs to modern Indian history, and they are not corrupted all the way, which is, quite nice for a well-wisher of India. Okay, within a few years after the death of Gobind Singh, the peasants made the first attempt to liberate the Punjab from Mughal rule. Under the leadership of Banda, they defied the authority of Mughal governors and kept the imperial army at bay for a full 7 years. Although Banda and his followers were ruthlessly slaughtered, the spark of rebellion that they had lit smoldered beneath the ashes and burst into flame again and again in different parts of the province. The period which followed witnessed a renewal of invasions of northern India by Afghan hordes led by Ahmad Shah Abdali, which gave a further impetus to the growth of Punjabi nationalism. Peasants grouped themselves into bands called misls, harassed and ultimately expelled the invaders. So this is the backdrop of Jammu, which we will discuss right now. Jai Mata Di. Jai Mata Di. Okay. The chapter is titled Breakup of the Missiles, meaning like the bands of peasants that organized against Mughal rule. The great Guru, in his wisdom, looked upon Maharaja Ranjit Singh as his chief servitor, and Sikh, in his benevolence, bestowed on him the privilege of serving the temple. This is an inscription in one of the central shrines rebuilt in marble and gold. So when I visited Punjab, I actually can't read, most of the languages. So it is very nice that it is translated here. So first Afghan invasion, 1747-8, emergence of the missiles. Abdali, the new ruler of Afghanistan, claimed the right to conquer India as the successor to Nadir Shah, who was murdered in June 1747. Shah Nawaz had in the meantime been chided for his lack of patriotism. The Afghans took scant notice of his last-minute efforts to stop them and entered Lahore 1748. They plundered the suburbs and exacted a heavy tribute for sparing the rest of the city. After a month's sojourn at Lahore, Abdali resumed his march towards Delhi. The misildari system was ideally suited to the conditions of the time and worked well under leaders like Kapoor Singh and Jats Singh Ahluwalia. It combined freedom of action with the discipline of a unified command. It channeled the energies of the fiercely independent Khalsa soldier in the service of a cause which he held dear, the expulsion of foreigners from the Punjab and the fulfillment of the prophecy of Guru Gobind of the establishment of a Sikh state. By the time the last of Abdali's men had been cleared from the Punjab, the missiles had spread into the three doabs, between the Chenab and the Ravi, between the Ravi and the Bias, and between the Bias and the Sutlej. They were firmly entrenched in Amritsar with the mud fortress of Ram Rauni guarding the city. Mir Manu was confirmed as governor of the Punjab in April 1748, but he was far from being in effective control of the province. The Afghans still held Multan. The Sikhs, the three Doabs, the Raja of Jammu had cast off the Mughal yoke and declared an independent Dogra state. Manu was not strong enough to fight all three at once, so the Raja of Jammu, Afghans, and Sikhs. His biggest handicap was lack of support from the government of Delhi, where the new wazir Safdar Jung was doing his best to undermine the growing power of the Turani Turks, of whom Mir Manu was the leader. Mir Manu instructed Adina Beg Khan to curb the Sikh leaders. Adina Beg Khan won over Jassa Singh Ramgaria and proceeded to Amritsar, where the Sikhs had foregathered to celebrate Diwali. Mir Manu and Kaura Mal came from Lahore and joined Adina in besieging Ram Rauni. After 2 months of fighting, Mir Manu offered to raise the siege and give the Sikhs a jagir if they agreed to remain peaceful. Jassa Singh Ahluwalia accepted the offer of 1/4 of the revenue of Patti, which is probably a district. The real reason for Manu's placating the Sikhs in this manner was the news that Ahmad Shah Abdali had again assembled an army to invade India. Second Afghan invasion, 1748-49. In 1748, Abdali left Peshawar for the Punjab. Manu sent frantic appeals to Delhi for help, but Safdar Jung, who was more anxious to see Manu out of power than to repel the foreigner, prevaricated, and Manu had to face the Afghans with whatever force he could muster. Manu stopped the invading army on the banks of the Chenab, 4 miles east of Wazirabad. Abdali hesitated to open hostilities with a man who had beaten him only 9 months earlier. Then he realized that if he let the winter days go by, the summer heat would turn the odds against his mountaineers. He kept the bulk of his army with him, facing Mir Manu, while a column under General Jahan Khan bypassed Manu's force and made for Lahore. The Sikhs got information that while Mir Manu was facing Abdali on the Chenab, Manu's deputy in Lahore had left the city unguarded to check the advance of Jahan Khan. They swooped down to Lahore, and for some hours Nawab Kapoor Singh had the pleasure of having the capital at his mercy. He evacuated the city when he heard the return of the governor. The impasse on the Chenab was resolved by the willingness of both parties to come to terms. Jahan Khan having been unsuccessful at Lahore, the Afghans wanted to return home with whatever they could lay their hands on. Manu had not received any assistance from Delhi and decided to shake the chain of friendship and accommodation in Abdali's ears and smother the fire that had not yet broken out in flame. The Afghan was given all the territory west of the Indus, as had been ceded to the Persian Nadir Shah, and the revenue of 4 districts in Punjab, Sialkot, Aurangabad, Gujarat, and Pasrur, yielding an annual revenue of 14 lakhs of rupees. In short, Mir Manu became a feudatory of the Afghan king as well as of the Mughal emperor. Mir Manu returned to Lahore, resolved to teach the Sikhs a lesson for their audacity in entering the capital in his absence. Their jagir was confiscated. Mobile columns armed with long-firing jazals were sent out to shoot down Sikhs. This campaign did not last very long. Wazir Safdar Jang continued making difficulties for Mir Manu. In 1750, he bribed Nasir Khan, who had been a trusted employee of Mir Manu, to revolt against his master. The wazir promised him the subedari of Lahore in place of Manu. Manu defeated the ungrateful Nasir Khan at Sialkot and packed him off to Delhi to seek compensation from Safdar Jang. The wazir had other arrows in his quiver. Soon after the Nasir revolt had miscarried, he announced the appointment of Shah Nawaz Khan as independent governor of Multan. By the way, Imran Khan is also in jail, like the current Pakistani opposition. He also gave Shah Nawaz to understand that if he ousted Mir Manu, he could add Lahore to his gubernatorial domain. Shah Nawaz fell into the wazir's trap, and as soon as he was installed at Multan, began to make preparations to capture Lahore. The only man Mir Manu could rely on was Kauramal, and Kauramal made no secret of his attachment to the faith of Nanak. On the Diwan's advice, the mobile columns of Jazalchis were withdrawn. The Sikhs were allowed to remain in possession of Ram Rani and were invited to join the campaign against Shah Nawaz. Kauramal led a motley host consisting of Mughals, Punjabi Muslimans, Afghans, and Sikhs under Jats Singhs Ahluwalia. He defeated the Multan army, cut off the fallen Shah Nawaz's head, and sent it as a trophy to Mir Manu. The grateful Manu gave Kauramal the title of Maharaja Bahadur and gave him governor of Multan. The Diwan, who felt that he owed his success to Sikh collaboration, heaped the Misildars with favors. He retained many Sikhs in service. In the years 1749 and 1750, a great many peasants joined the Sikh fold. Third Afghan invasion, the Punjab under Sikh protection, 1751-2. By the autumn of 1751, the Punjab was rife with rumors with another attack from Afghans. Mir Manu had failed to pay the revenue of the 4 districts ceded to Abdali, and in the middle of November, advance units of the Afghan army under General Jahan Khan crossed the Indus. Abdali followed close behind. Mir Manu tried to buy off the invaders by paying a part of the arrears. The Afghans took 9 lakhs offered to them, and proceeded further into the Punjab. Manu knew it was useless to rely for help on the government at Delhi. He summoned Kauramal from Multan, Adina Beg Khan from Jalandhar, and made preparations to fight the Afghans. Mir Manu raised a large number of Punjabis, the largest contingent being Sikhs, who numbered over 20,000. In December 1751, he crossed the Ravi to check the Afghans led by Jahan Khan. Instead of joining Jahan Khan, Abdali made a detour and closed in on Lahore from the northeast. Manu quickly retraced his steps and entrenched himself outside the city walls. This maneuver proved to be an expensive mistake. While the Afghans had the entire countryside to feed them, Manu had nothing more to fall back on than what was usually stocked in the city in times of peace. At the end of 6 weeks, all the grain and fodder was exhausted, and no lamp was lighted in any house for a distance of 3 marches. Manu sought advice from his counselors. Kaura Mal advised patience. The Afghans, he argued, had also exhausted their provisions. Besides, it was already March. In another fortnight, it would be too hot for the enemy, who were encamped in the open. Adina Beg was for immediate action. Manu accepted Adina Beg's advice and opened hostilities on March 5th. Kauramal fell on the second day of the battle. Adina Beg quietly disappeared from the field. Mir Manu fought as long as he could and then laid down arms. The Afghans extracted an indemnity of 30 lakhs of rupees in cash from Manu. By the terms of the treaty ratified by the Mughal emperor on 13th April 1752, Lahore and Multan were ceded to Abdali. Thus, the Punjab passed out of the Mughal orbit into the Afghan. But before leaving India, Abdali also conquered and annexed Kashmir to his kingdom. A Punjabi saying expresses Sikh sentiment of the 1753 year. Mir Manu is our sickle, we the fodder for him to mow. The more he reaps, the more we grow. With the passing of Mir Manu, the administration of the Punjab collapsed. A country over which the Mughals and the Afghans had fought each other was now neglected by both. The Mughal emperor first appointed his 3-year-old boy to be governor, with Mir Manu's infant son as his deputy. Manu's brother, Intizam-ud-Dawla, who had been the wazir in Delhi, became a sort of guardian governor. Effective power was, however, vested in the local dignitaries, of whom Adina Beg Khan was one. Ahmad Shah Abdali was too busy with his own problems in Afghanistan to pay much attention to the Punjab and confirmed the appointment of Mir Manu's son. His only interest was to see that tribute came in regularly. The ludicrous state of affairs ended 6 months later with the death of Mir Manu's son in May 1754. Mir Manu's widow, Mughlani Begum, refused to submit to the nominee of the new emperor, Alamgir II, but her power was circumscribed to Lahore and its environs. Even in these cities, the day-to-day administration was entrusted to the hands of court eunuchs, leaving Mughlani free to while away the tedium of widowhood in the company of her lovers. What a great life. Turbulent Punjabis could hardly be expected to be ruled by infants, eunuchs, and amorous widows. The Punjab broke up into many fragments. Multan and the 4 districts ceded to Abdali continued to pay revenue to the Afghans. Jalandhar and Sirhind were farmed by Adina Beg Khan. Different tribes set up semi-autonomous principalities with militias and fortresses of their own. The strongest force in the province was that of the Dal Khalsa, with its headquarters at Amritsar. During the months of chaos following the death of Mir Manu, units of the Dal indiscriminately plundered towns and villages and looted the suburbs of Lahore. In the winter of 1754, Sikh horsemen swept through Ambala and Sirhind and later into Haryana and onwards into the territories of the Raja of Jaipur, Rajasthan. Sikh leaders realized that the Punjab had no government, nor the people any security of life or property. They took the first step towards becoming rulers of the country. Instead of simply robbing the people, as they had done in the past, they offered them protection, rakhi, on payment of 1/5 of their takings at the end of each harvest. Since the Sikhs were the only power which could fulfill its obligations, most of the Punjab readily accepted the offer of protection. And now Punjab is under Sikh administration. The headquarters of the Sikh military administration remained at Amritsar, where the Nishanwaliyas, Dalewaliyas, and other unattached units were kept as a sort of reserve force. The Missals continued to be autonomous, with liberty to extend the Rakhi over any area they chose. The Bhangis and the Sukarchakiyas took over the Reshna and Chaj Doabs, the Kanayas and Ramgarhias, the land between Amritsar and the Himalayas, the Singhpurias and Ahluwalias territory on both sides of the river Sutlej. At Lahore, the sordid intrigues continue. Several attempts were made to oust Mughlani and her eunuchs, but she proved more than a match for her adversaries and even outwitted the wily Adina Bey Khan by ejecting his deputy with the help of the Afghans. Mughlani was arrested in March 1756 on the orders of the wazir and removed to Delhi. The district of Lahore was farmed out to Adina Bey Khan. Though she was kept in close confinement, Mughlani Begum was able to send word to Abdali exhorting him to reconquer India. I know that goods and cash worth of crores of rupees lie buried in the palace of my late father-in-law, besides heaps of gold and silver stored inside the ceilings. If you invade India this time, the Indian Empire with all its riches will fall into your hands, she wrote in a letter. Mughlani was not the only one to invite the Afghans. Independently of each other, the Mughal emperor and the Rohilla chief Najib also sent letters pressing Abdali to come to India. Then there's the fourth Afghan invasion. Charhat Singh Sukarchakia had become one of the leaders of the Sikh offensive against the Afghans. Obaid Khan decided to take this thorn out of his side by reducing the Sukarchakia fortress at Gujranwala. No sooner had the Afghans encircled Gujranwala than the Misildars led by Jats Singh Ahluwalia, Hari Singh Bhangi, Jai Singh Kanaya, and others closed around the Afghans and compelled them to raise the siege. Obaid Khan extricated himself with some difficulty, leaving his siege guns and heavy artillery in the hands of the Sikhs. The road to Lahore was now open. The Diwali of 1761 was celebrated with great jubilation at Amritsar. The Sarbat Khalsa once again resolved to capture Lahore and clear the Punjab of foreigners. The gates of Lahore were thrown open to welcome the Sikhs. Jats Singh Ahluwalia entered the capital at the head of the Dal Khalsa. Although in the Sikh Commonwealth there was no place for monarchs, Jats Singh the brewer, who had been humorously called Badshah, now became one in fact and was hailed as the Sultan ul Qawm, king of the nation. A new currency was minted to celebrate the capture of Lahore. The Sikhs began systematic operations to expel Afghan officials from the Punjab. Within a few weeks, they had the entire province from the Sutlej to the Indus under their control. Only one pocket remained to be clear. Abdali was reported to be on the march again. This time, his sole objective was to destroy the power of the Sikhs. Sixth Afghan invasion, 1762, the Great Holocaust. The fort inside the city of Lahore was in the hands of the Afghans. To avoid being caught between the Afghans in the citadel and the Afghans marching down from the northwest, Jats Singh Ahluwalia evacuated Lahore and ordered the raising of the siege of Jandiala. He allowed his soldiers to remove their women and children to safety in the Haryana desert and then report for duty. Abdali reoccupied Lahore. On receiving intelligence that great numbers of Sikhs were moving southwards, he immediately set out in pursuit. He covered a distance of 150 miles in 2 days and caught up with the Sikhs at the village of Kup. It was an unequal fight. Most of the 30,000 Sikhs were non-combatants, old women, men, and children. Sikh horsemen could not indulge in their favorite hit-and-run tactics and had to engage the Afghans, who outnumbered them, in hand-to-hand fight. Sikh soldiers put up their women and children in the center and moved on like a living fortress from Kup towards Barnala, where they expected Alha Singh of Patiala to come to their rescue. The Afghans took a heavy toll of Sikh life and gave up only when night fell and they were wearied of killing. The Sikhs' troubles were not over. Those who eluded the Afghans had to run the gauntlet of the Brar tribes who turned against them. According to the Sikh historian Ratan Singh Bhangu, not a single Sikh escaped unhurt. Each bore some wounds on his body. The Holocaust of 5th February 1762 is known to the Sikhs as the Vada Ghalughara, the Great Massacre. Abdali returned to Lahore with 50 cartloads of heads and hundreds of Sikhs in chains. According to Forster, pyramids were erected and covered with the heads of slaughtered Sikhs, and it is mentioned that Ahmad Shah caused the walls of those mosques, which the Sikh had polluted, to be washed with their blood that contamination might be removed, and the ignominy offered to the religion of Islam be expiated. Abdali spent the rest of the year partly at Lahore and partly in cooler Kalanar. He held out an olive branch to the Marathas, confirmed Shah Alam as emperor at Delhi, got the Raja of Jammu to help recapture Kashmir for him, and persuaded the zamindars of the Punjab to settle down peacefully on their land. Only for the Sikhs he had no forgiveness, and they asked for none. The Galugara and the blowing up of Harim Mandir was only another reason to strengthen their determination to fight the Afghans. By the month of May, they were up in arms again. When Abdali was in Lahore, they defeated the Afghan Faujdar of Sirhind at Harnalgarh. Jats Singh Ahluwalia and Tara Singh Geva plundered the Jalandhar Doab. The Bhangis and Sukarchakiyas took the Doabs between the Ravi and the Jhelum, and bands of Sikh horsemen roving between Panipat and Karnal made communication between Delhi and Lahore impossible. Despite the Galughara disaster in the preceding spring, by the autumn the Sikhs had regained enough confidence to foregather in large numbers at Amritsar to celebrate Diwali. Abdali made a mild effort to win them over and sent an envoy with proposals for a treaty of peace. The Sikhs were in no mood to treat with the Afghan, and heaped insult on the emissary. Abdali did not waste any more time and turned up on the outskirts of Amritsar. The Battle of Amritsar was fought in the gray light of a sun in a total eclipse. By the way, we just had a lunar eclipse, and the next one's a solar eclipse, so it ended when the sunless day was blacked out by a moonless night, with the adversaries retiring from the field. The Sikhs to the fastness of the jungles of Lakhi, Abdali behind the walled safety of Lahore. Disturbances in Afghanistan compelled Abdali to leave Punjab. After making arrangements for the administration of northern India, he left Lahore on 12 December 1762. Kabuli Mal was appointed governor of Lahore, and other districts were neatly parceled out between Afghan officers and their Rajput supporters. In none of these districts was his writ worth more than the paper on which it was written. By the spring of 1763, Abdali's nominees were restricted to their encampments. The largest Afghan pocket in the Punjab, Kasur, fell to the Bhangi, Hari Singh, yielding a treasure large enough to finance many expeditions. The Jalandhar Doab was retaken by Jats Singh Ahluwalia. In November 1763, Charhat Singh Sukarchakia and the Bhangis inflicted a defeat on General Jahan Khan at Sialkot. Jats Singh Ahluwalia defeated Bikhan Khan of Malarkotla, who was slain, and plundered Morinda. As in the past, the wrath of the Sikhs was vented on Sirhind, which was recaptured in January 1764. At the site of the execution of Guru Gobind's son, a temple was raised and named Fatehgarh, the Fort of Victory. A few weeks after the fall of Sirhind, the Sikhs invested Lahore and dictated terms to Kabuli Mal. There was nothing to stop them. The land stretching from the Indus to the Yamuna and often across up to the Ganges, and from the Himalayas down to the junction of the Punjab's 5 rivers beyond Multan, was under Sikh control. But before the Sikhs could celebrate their reconquest of Punjab at the Diwali festival, Abdali was on the move again. 7th Afghan invasion! 1764, Sikhs retake Lahore and extend operations beyond Delhi. In October 1764, an army of 18,000 Afghans crossed the Indus and were joined at Aminabad by another 12,000 Baluch tribesmen under Nasir Khan of Khalat. The forces converged on Lahore, where Kabuli Mal welcomed them. The Sikhs resumed their usual harrying tactics. Part of the Khalsa army entrenched in the Laki jungle began to prey upon the Afghans and Baluchis. They came stealthily like thieves and attacked like wolves. After a month of shadowboxing, Abdali marched towards Amritsar. He was harassed all along the route. The Afghans encircled the city to make sure that no Sikhs escaped. What the Afghans saw at the Hari Mandir temple gave them some notion of the sort of people they were up against. Guarding the entrance to the shrine were only 30 Sikhs with not a grain of fear about them. They were about to sacrifice their lives for the Gurus. The 30 men led by Gurbaksh Singh of the village of Kamkaran fell in the fighting and joined the ranks of the many honored martyrs. For the third time, the Afghans blew up Hari Mandir. Amritsar yielded little loot and no more than 36 alive. Amritsar yielded little loot and no more than 30 Sikh lives. Abdali turned his footsteps towards Patiala, ravaging the country in the most savage manner. Nur Muhammad writes, whichever way the army turned, the people were massacred in broad daylight. No distinction was made between Sikhs and non-Sikhs. The people ran away and hid themselves wherever they could. No one can count the number of things that fell into the hands of the crusaders. All fed upon nothing but sugar candy and sugar cane. The stomachs of all, big and small, slaves and slave girls, were filled with these 4 things: beef, sugar cane, sugar candy, and sesame. The visitation of the Afghans and Baluchis is recalled to this day in the saying, Khada pita laheda, Baki Ahmed Shaheda. To eat and drink is all we know, for the rest to Ahmad Shah doth go. Ahmad Shah Abdali went leisurely across Jalandhar Doab, assuming himself, hunting deer and tiger, looting the country. He passed along the Himalayan foothills near Pinjar and arrived at Kunjpura in February 1765. The warm breeze of spring reminded the Afghans that summer would soon be on them, and the blazing inferno of the Punjab plains would then be wholly advantageous to their Sikh adversaries. Nasir Khan Baluch advised Abdali to leave the task of subjugating the Sikhs to his Indian allies, Rohillas, Jats, Marathas, and Alha Singh of Patiala, for the hare of a country can be best caught by a hound of the same country. Abdali accepted the advice and headed for the territories of Alha Singh. He passed through Sirhind, which had suffered from the hands of the Sikhs a short while ago. The whole city lay in ruins, wrote Nur Muhammad. No man, not even a bird, was to be seen there except the owl. When I visited the lofty shrines, I felt the breeze of paradise coming from every tomb. Royal palaces of the city and its gardens, orchards and water tanks were all lying in ruins. Abdali set on his homeward journey. As soon as he crossed the Sutlej, the Sikhs were on his heels. The Afghan was obviously discomfited. What, during my reign, my own palanquin trembles for the fear of the Sikhs, roared Abdali. I will beat these infidels in such a way that the bones within their bodies will be reduced to fluffs of cotton. All the missile sardars took part in the running battle. It was not to Abdali's liking, for nowhere would the Sikhs make a stand and fight in the orthodox way. They came like the lion and fled like the fox, wrote Nur Muhammad. It was the same hit and run for full 7 days and nights. If you wish to learn the art of war, come face to face with them in battle. The body of every one of them is like a piece of rock, and in physical grandeur every one of them is equal to more than 50. If their armies take to flight, do not think they are running away. It is only a war tactic of theirs. The experience of the last Afghan campaign had restored its confidence. The pool of the Hari Mandir was cleansed and the temple rebuilt at considerable expense. 6 of the 12 missiles appointed representatives to look after their interests in Amritsar. Religious service and the Guru Ka Langar was resumed on a larger scale than ever. Religious services and the Guru Ka Langar were resumed on a larger scale than ever. The Sarbat Khalsa resolved to take advantage of the absence of Abdali's governor Kabuli Mal, who was in Jammu recruiting Dogras for his army to retake Lahore. After the monsoon, Sikhs plundered the country north of Delhi and crossed the Yamuna into Rohilla territory. They had many skirmishes with Najib Uddaullah's troops, and when they were hard-pressed, recrossed the Yamuna. This expedition was more in the nature of a reconnaissance, and the missiles were back in Amritsar to celebrate Diwali. A few days after the celebration, they were back on the scene of operations, and despite suffering a reverse at the hands of the Rohillas near Karnal, came up to Karkoda near Delhi, from whence Banda had first called the Sikhs to arms 57 years earlier. They allied themselves with the Jats of Bharatpur and pillaged Rewari and many villages in the territories of the Raja of Jaipur. In March 1766, a combined army of Sikhs and Jats defeated the Marathas, who were coming up to help the Rajputs, in a battle fought on the banks of the river Chambal. The Jats then occupied Dholpur. The Sikhs turned back from Madhya Pradesh laden with the spoils won during the campaign and money the Jats had given them for their services. News of their approach created panic in Delhi. Najib Uddaulla hurried back to the capital and decided to give the Sikhs a taste of their own medicine. The Rohillas caught up with the Sikhs near Panipat, inflicted many casualties, and made them part with the plunder they had amassed. While some of the Dai's forces were busy on the eastern front, others, under the command of the Bhangi Sardars Chanda Singh and Ganda Singh, were extending the frontiers of the Sikh state towards the south. In 1766, they captured the important town of Pakpatan and proceeded up to Multan. The operations had to be stopped, for Abdali had entered the Punjab again, and all missiles were required to muster their full strength to face the Afghans. 8th Afghan invasion, 1766. Abdali came to Punjab for the 8th time. He brushed aside 2 attempts by them to check him near the river Jhelum and proceeded triumphantly through Gujarat to Sialkot. He ordered the zamindars to apprehend and despoil with every degree of severity all persons carrying the marks of a Sikh. From Sialkot, the Afghans turned to Lahore. The 3 Sardars who had parceled the city between themselves left immediately. Abdali entered the capital on 22nd December 1766. The Muslim citizens told the Afghan that they had been well and honorably treated by the Sikhs, and persuaded Abdali to offer the Subedari of Lahore to Lena Singh. Abdali sent the invitation to the Sardar with trays of the choicest dry fruit of Afghanistan. In return, the Sikh sent a handful of coarse grain with the message that fruit was for royalty. He was a humble peasant who lived on simple food.